What's up, boys? So I'm extremely sick right now, and I've been working on two videos at the same time. But I just figured that I'd quickly record and get this one out since it kind of occurred to me like 15 minutes ago. Anyway, so the topic of today's video is, and I'm sure you've seen the title, Pixel Gun isn't listening to you, okay? And what I mean by this is that and this has been going on for a couple years now. I've tried to kind of tell people along the way, right? People seem to think that the Pixelgun 3D developers, more specifically development team that's actually on the Discord server that you can talk to, are fucking morons. Now I don't know how anyone can't critically think, and I'm gonna show you a comment on a YouTube video under the Pixelgun YouTube channel that kind of prompted me to make this video. But basically, I'm here to say the Pixelgun dev team isn't dumb. The ideas you're offering them aren't revolutionary, okay? They know that balancing the weapons will make the game better. They know that the game is ridiculously unplayable if you're on a fresh account. They know that the content's dry. They know that the game is dying, okay? You are not the savior to present these unthought of brilliant ideas, like thinking that the devs are like some fucking morons, monkeys, that can't think of this shit on their own. Which I'm telling you, they can, okay? The developers are not stupid. They know what is good for the game. They will not listen to you. This is why the idea submission channel in the Pixelgun server is fucking useless. I've been saying this for so long, bro. I've been saying this for so long. If you handed it to me, I could literally fix the game in 50 seconds. And there are so many other people that could do the exact same. Because it does not require a genius to fix this game, okay? And I'm going to show you guys this comment that I found on a YouTube video that kind of prompted me to make this, like I said before, and I'll read it out. So the comment goes, "Dear Pixelgun team, I've been playing Pixelgun for many years, and I truly love both the current game and the idea of Pixelgun. So, you know, just like the general start to something, trying to get their attention, yada yada yada, blah 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 blah. I want to share something important, not as criticism, but as honest feedback from someone who wants this series to succeed globally. Now, let me tell you guys this right now, okay? I'm not a developer, but I've been in the community for 3 years. I can say this straight up, whether it's through emails, Discord server, Discord DMs, the developers have received this message in length, probably even longer, from 1,000 different people, okay? They're not stupid, like I just said, they just don't care. Well, it's less that they don't care, but it's more that they can't act on it, since the developers have quotas to fill that are realistically impossible, okay, unless Jinxie hopped on the game. Let's continue reading. Pixelgun has always had the potential to become one of the biggest FPS games in the world. In the early years, the skill-based gameplay, unique weapon designs from the blah 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 blah, yeah, so he's basically just like glazing, again, nostalgia baiting. I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but just to point out, by the way, again, defending the developers, because most of the player base are stupid, Pixelgun has never been more skill-based in its entire lifetime. It is not even close, okay? Pixelgun, contrary to popular belief, has been on a consistent downwards trend in quote-unquote pay-to-win, okay? I'm sure most of you guys don't remember, because you're either blinded by nostalgia or you straight up don't remember / didn't play. Back in 2017, 2018, the so-called prime days of Pixelgun, the game was literally unplayable without paying money, okay? There was a certain level you could reach, no matter how good you were, no matter how much you grinded free to play, no matter how many hours you put into the game, there was a certain level you could reach and then be capped at that, okay? There were weapons, so-called the Ghost Lantern, the Anti-Hero Rifle, the Secret Forces Rifle, just to name a couple. There were weapons that cost a set amount of gems that were impossible to attain, free to play, by the way. Of course, people don't know this because gems are easy to obtain even in the thousands free to play these days. You could not get gems in any ways back in the quote-unquote prime days of Pixelgun, okay? And people forget about this and always say, oh, Pixelgun, oh, this game became so... It didn't! It became more free to play. Okay, the fact that I exist, I have been a quote-unquote top player for 3 years straight in this game. And you can go back through all my videos. I still have a couple listed from back when I started playing. My loadout has barely changed, okay? The game is not pay to win. It just isn't. It's skill-based. It's skill-based. I've gotten better over the years, not because I've been playing money, but because I've been playing the game, putting the hours in, and just capping more heads, okay? My guns haven't changed that much, especially for the Steam patch, okay? The Steam version of the game, we're building on, it's been 2 years now. The Steam version of the game, the best loadout in the game has hardly changed. Maybe one weapon here and there. Sometimes the buffs and nerfs get reverted, okay? It isn't that hard, please, just get good. I kind of went off on a whole side tangent there because it always pisses me off when I see people in the Pixel Gun server arguing that, oh, the game is so, oh, it's so pay to win, oh my god, oh, Ultimatum, bro. It didn't fucking break the game. You just suck, okay? You just suck. We can continue now. Many players feel that the game is harder to keep up with that. Again, no. It just is not. Okay? The only thing in this paragraph that I agree with is modules, okay? Because modules are bullshit. I've always been a preacher to this. The only quote-unquote pay-to-win part of Pixel Gun is the modules. Except even the modules aren't pay-to-win. Would you like to know why? If you wanted to actually max all of your modules, or at least, let's be generous, if you wanted to max all the relevant modules, so your damage ones, and maybe like accelerator and like the camo, it would cost you thousands of dollars. And I can tell you right now, no one is dishing out thousands of dollars in the big 2025, almost 2026, to buy modules. So they aren't even pay to win. They're just, you either have them or you hack, okay? It is not pay to win. I can't exaggerate this enough. Whenever you tell the devs, oh, the game is pay to win, you know, you can make stuff cheaper, you can make progression, but they're not going to listen because they can't do that, okay? If they wanted to, if they could, they would have done it years ago. Please stop being dumb. Holy shit. Okay, let's continue reading. I'm going to go off on a bunch of side tangents reading this, okay? Because like I've wanted to say this in a video for so long because it actually annoys me. This guy said one-shot weapons, module gap. By the way, can I add, one-shot weapons actually increase the skill ceiling of the game. They actually increase what can be done. They increase the amount of kills you can get in a match. They increase how good you can actually be. So that's not a bad thing. I can see how people would think it's a bad thing since, you know, one-shot weapons usually tend to have an X mod kind of prerequisite, although they're continuing to change that by adding weapons with over 200 damage, which makes it more accessible, actually. Now, he carries on saying, this is why adding official tournaments, competitive events, multi-platform support... Again, by the way, something they can't do. I don't think people know this. Adding multi-platform support costs a shit ton of money and an incredible amount of effort that the devs are not willing to put in. Okay? It would not boost revenue by any way. It would not significantly impact the player base. We all saw what Steam did, right? Everyone's complaining about Steam. It hardly has a player base. It has like 700 active players, okay? Multi-platform would not work. Official tournaments also would not work. I might side tangent this. I'll keep it short. Pixel Gun cannot be a competitive game in a competitive format because of the netcoding and the servers behind the game. People seem to think that there's individual servers for every region. There aren't. Pixel Gun runs on one global server, meaning that everyone plays with different ping. Also meaning that unless you're playing a 10-player FFA, who kills who is completely up to the netcoding of the game. What that means is that basically you can completely, and I'm sure you guys know this if you've already done it, you can completely outplay someone, outmaneuver them with a grappler, shoot them in the back, and then 2 seconds after killing them, they'll randomly kill you. Okay, because that's just the way the netcoding of the game is. That isn't necessarily the developer's fault. It's just that if they added individual servers, which they won't, the game will die. There will be 10 players on every server, okay? Continuing. Pixel Gun is a game that already had players who admired skilled users, players who wanted to improve, content creators, a strong community. Let me just add, by the way, this hasn't really changed. I don't know why people seem to think that like skill is no longer a factor when it's really more of a factor than it's ever been, considering that, like I said before, there are players like me, like Dion, like QPD, like Rip My Leg, like Ryder, who hardly ever change their loadouts and are still 50 times better than most people will ever be, okay? It's because Pixel Gun's a skill-based game, inherently. The reason is because it has a ridiculously high skill ceiling, as it's basically a glorified aim trainer. No recoil, no spread, right, for the most part. So I don't know what he's talking about with the players who admired skilled users, players who wanted to improve. You can still do that. Is the game, like, unplayable in terms of its actual enjoyability? Yeah, sure. which I guess is a useful thing to point out. But then again, like, let me remind you again, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. The developers, if they could fix it, they would. Okay, it's not that they're dumb. The developers are smarter than you are. It's not that they're stupid. It's not like your ideas are revolutionary, like this comment seems to fucking think. It's that they cannot do it. The developers simply cannot implement something that would take that much money that wouldn't return the money, okay? It just isn't going to happen. Also, the code of Pixelgun is way too long. You can hear people talking about this on the server. If official tournaments existed, the game would grow rapidly again. I mean, I've literally already talked about this with the netcoding, so I'm just going to skip over this. It just doesn't really happen. Truly believe that Pixelgun 2 and Pixelgun 3D can coexist and grow together. Please consider creating skill-based tournaments, competitive modes, balanced environments to reduce one-shot and module dependence, multi-platform support. Now, the one great point that he makes here is reduce one-shot and module dependence. Forget the one-shot part, because that's not inherently an issue, okay? One-shot weapons aren't that offensive, considering everyone has them, considering how globally available they are. Okay, half of the couponable snipers in the gallery are one-shots with Xmod. But that brings me to the latter half of his sentence, module dependence. Okay, this has consistently been the biggest issue in game balance, basically since I started playing, and I started playing about 3 years ago, in November to December of 2022, okay? It was my biggest issue when I first started playing competitively, that I had just horrible mods compared to everyone I was competing against. I was literally known as like level 7 mod Aussie, etc. I think he makes a great point in that the devs could, I guess, rework the way modules work, or I guess give them less of an implication to super key things like a weapon one-shotting or a weapon not one-shotting. Again, like, it doesn't matter what ideas you present them with. It's not that they don't have the ideas, it's just that they can't be fucked implementing it, okay? The developers would take 30 seconds to come up with a better system than you could write up in like half an hour. They're not dumb. They're very intelligent people, okay? Like, you guys seem to think that the developers add ridiculous weapons and shit because they're just stupid and don't want the game to die. No. They're adding them as a scapegoat because they have quotas to fill, and it just so happens that for the place they are currently in, I'm just speaking on behalf of the developers, kind of to defend them here, to meet those quotas that they have strictly set out for them in this already sky-falling game, as we all know, it is more sustainable. Well, I guess not more sustainable, but in this case, I guess a little more viable to put in these little cash injection updates, such as a ridiculously broken weapon or a stupid set effect, or, you know, something along the lines of that. You guys know what I'm talking about. It is more viable for a small cash injection short term that will end up fucking up player experience for 2 months before they eventually nerf the said thing, rather than a long term, more thought out, more strategic update that would cause a slower but more gradual rise in revenue through whatever way that is, you know, through either improving player retention, player experience, or anything like that, which, again, they're not going to do. They could, but it would take too much effort, too much time, and it would take too much time for the actual return of that to come in, which obviously they cannot afford in the predicament they are in. That is why these Pixelgun developers are pushing so many updates, and that is why over the last year, specifically 2025, we've seen a rapid uptick in ridiculously broken power creep weapons. I'm sounding like an idiot. They kind of come into the game doing over 200 damage, right? Because that wasn't even heard of before 2025. Let me just remind you guys. Anyways, big side tangent. He ends off by saying, "We all love this game and want to see it shine again. Thank you for reading." They're not reading this shit, bro. Like, he seems to think that the Pixelgun YouTube channel is a place where you can just pop a comment in, and then, like, the developer, like Desperate Russian herself, is going to see it and be like, "Oh, fuck, man. This guy has a point, you know, let me add tournaments, let me add Switch and PC, multi-platform." No. And people have been doing this shit for 3 years, probably more time that I haven't seen, because I've only been in the community for 3 years, and it's never pissed me off enough to actually make a video about it and talk about it, because I just don't see how people can't just solve it in their heads. The developers aren't morons. I swear I've repeated that same sentence like 50 times at this point. But I guess to close off on this video, I wanted to make it a short one, but we've been going on for 15 minutes. You are not the genius you think you are. There have been hundreds of other people that have written out these same paragraphs with these same ideas that would be perfect on paper. Pixel gonna be a fucking paradise if these changes were implemented. I'm not talking against the changes. I'm talking against giving them to the developers thinking anything will happen, okay? The developers are not idiots. If they could, if they had the means to, they would have already applied these fixes years ago. Do you think that the developers just buff Cash Gun by tenfold and thinking, oh, this is great for the game, I'm sure everyone will love... No, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, this is going to fuck up the player experience for at least 2 months, but we'll get a small, short-term cash injection from the Black Friday chest that we're going to sell for $15, and we'll put the Cash Gun in there with like a 50% chance. Okay, because that's what they're doing. That's what they do every update. Every single set of balance changes, if you haven't noticed, is completely based on what the next trade events are, what the next lottery is, and what weapons that they want to incline to sell to people. Okay? Balance changes are never made out of the heart of the community unless a specific amount of people and content creators complain about something for 3 months. Okay, that's what happened with Bloody Mercenary. That's what happened with Bloody Mercenary. That's what happened with a couple other weapons I won't be bothered naming. It's happened time and time again. People still don't realize this for some reason. I mean, I thought it was obvious, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're not a revolutionary. You're not fucking Socrates of Pixel Gun, okay? You're just stop, please, stop. Nothing against the guy making the comment, okay? Like, I'm sure he had the best interest. I'm just telling you guys, stop thinking your ideas will ever be implemented or that your ideas are at all unique or, dare I say, revolutionary. They aren't. And yeah, I guess you guys can expect a new video sometime the next week. The one I put out on my community post saying that, I'd make the video about aiming, and I'm planning on dropping that soon. And don't worry, it won't be 15 minutes of me showing you different ways to download an aim trainer, like a certain someone's 40,000 view video. But yeah, aside from that, see you guys next week. Bye.